Cool thumbnail, right?
2 seconds later.
I don't have to explain that the depictions of Russia and Russians in Hollywood, which unfortunately means, the entire Western world, is almost always negative. Think Rocky and Drago, Red Sparrow. Actually stopped watching that bullshit over-the-top Russians are evil movie. I literally turned it off. I'm talking about the Red Sparrow. The list can go on and on. Russia and Russians are always depicted as backwards, scary, dictatorial, savage, you name it, literally all the time. But what do Russians actually think about their state? Well, I got some of them stats for you from Gallup Poll, APM Research, and Reuters. Let's try to compare to how Americans feel about their country.
How dare you!
Shut up, bitch!
All articles are from 2023, except for APM Research on American Liberty, which is from 2022. 56%, a record number of Russians, say that their economy is improving. 20% of Americans say that their economy is improving. 46% of Russians, a record number, say that their standards of living are improving, whereas 37% of Americans report that their financial situation is improving. 85% of Russians approve of Vladimir Putin. This is coming from Levada Center, which is really not known. It's not well known to be pro-government, but their research says 85%, whereas 40% of Americans actually approve of Mr. Joe Biden. This is coming from Reuters, so we can see, which country actually, or which people of which country actually trust their leaders. 75%, a record number of Russians, are satisfied with their personal freedom. 60% of American men and 54% of American women believe that they have less personal freedoms than 10 years ago. I know this is not exactly the same type of statistic, but it really does paint an interesting trend for, where each country is actually going and what the people in those countries actually think about the situation and where it's going. Now, 51% of Russians, think that the media has a lot of freedom. I couldn't find the data of the, American equivalent, but my opinion is that Russians are actually much happier now that some of these ultra-liberal, anti-Russian, pro-Western type of news media outlets have actually been literally kicked out of the country. But, that's just my personal opinion. 71%, a record level of Russians, feel safe walking home at night in their city, whereas 40% of Americans are afraid to walk alone at night a mile away from their house. A mile away. So basically, Americans view their property as their safe haven. Until they get burglarized or the cops have a no-knock warrant at the wrong house. Whereas, Russians at a record level feel safe walking around at night in their cities. That's a little bit of a difference, don't you think? By the way, you Westerners will actually be very, very surprised by the next interesting fact. The safest city in Russia, it's actually located in Chechnya. The city is called Grozny. And you know what? This is the actual city and area that the American embassy says people shouldn't go to because it's super duper uber dangerous and stuff like that. But that's actually the safest city in Russia, which is actually now perceived by its own citizens as being safer than at least what Americans are saying about America. Now, I get it. This is literally all about perception. This is how these particular people perceive their country to be, or the State of the Union in their country to be. So in this case, it could possibly well be that Russians are.
Это первый день твоей новой жизни.
And at the same time, it could very well be that the Americans are actually.
It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms.
Just a general feeling. Now, if I was an American or a European and I had the chance to actually ask one simple question to the government, it would probably be,
why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
But, that's just my personal opinion.